Before we begin, if stories like this resonate with you, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Your support means everything to us. Now let me tell you what happened when my own son betrayed me in the worst possible way. My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 68 years old, and I never thought I'd be telling this story. 3 weeks ago, I was standing on the sidewalk outside the house I bought with my life savings, holding 2 suitcases and watching my son change the locks. Today, I'm about to show you exactly what happened when I decided to fight back. I moved to Portland, Oregon in 1982 with my late husband David. We were young, ambitious, and completely broke. David worked double shifts at the Boeing plant while I cleaned offices downtown. Every penny we saved went toward one dream: owning our own home. When David passed away from a heart attack in 2019, that little blue house on Maple Street became everything to me. It wasn't just 4 walls and a roof. It was 37 years of memories, sacrifice, and love. My son Kevin is 35 now. After his divorce 2 years ago, he moved back in with me, bringing my 8-year-old granddaughter Emma. I was thrilled. The house felt alive again with Emma's laughter echoing through the halls, her drawings covering my refrigerator. Kevin seemed to be getting back on his feet, working as a project manager for a construction company. Everything appeared normal, even good. But I should have seen the signs. It started small. Kevin began making comments about the house needing updates. "Mom, this place is falling apart," he'd say, gesturing at the perfectly functional 1970s kitchen. "The electrical is probably dangerous. The roof looks like it's about to cave in." He'd bring contractors by without asking, getting estimates for renovations I never requested. Then came the financial conversations. "Mom, you're living on Social Security and Dad's pension. What if you need medical care? What if the house needs major repairs?" His voice carried that patronizing tone adult children use when they think they know better than their parents. The breaking point came 3 months ago. I was sitting in my garden, tending to the roses David planted for our 10th anniversary, when Kevin approached me with a folder full of papers. "Mom, I've been thinking," he said, settling into the chair beside me. "This house is too much for you. I found a nice senior living community about 20 minutes away. They have activities, medical staff on site, everything you'd need." I looked up from my roses, soil still under my fingernails. "Kevin, I'm not ready for that. This is my home." "But Mom, be practical. The maintenance, the taxes, the utilities, it's draining your resources. And with Emma and me here, we're crowding you." He opened the folder, revealing glossy brochures for Sunset Manor Senior Living. "Look at this place. You'd have your own apartment, meals provided, transportation to appointments. I don't want to live in an institution, Kevin. I want to live in the house your father and I built together." His jaw tightened. "You're being stubborn, Mom. You can't take care of this place anymore. I've been taking care of this place just fine for 37 years. That was before. You're older now. What if you fall? What if something happens to the house while Emma and I are here? We'd all be in trouble." The conversation ended there, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. Over the following weeks, Kevin became increasingly aggressive about his position. He'd point out every creaky floorboard, every paint chip, every minor maintenance issue as evidence that I was too old and incapable to manage the property. Then came the morning that changed everything. I woke up to find Kevin sitting at my kitchen table with a man in an expensive suit. The stranger had papers spread out in front of him, and both men looked up when I entered in my bathrobe. "Mom, this is Richard Morrison from Morrison & Associates Real Estate," Kevin said, standing up. "I asked him to come by and give us a market evaluation on the house." "Without asking me?" I clutched my robe tighter. "I'm just trying to help," Kevin replied. "Richard here thinks we could get $485,000 for this place. After paying off the remaining mortgage and fees, you'd walk away with over $400,000. That's enough to pay for years at Sunset Manor, with money left over for Emma's college fund." Richard Morrison smiled, that practiced real estate smile. "Mrs. Chen, your son is looking out for your best interests. This is a seller's market, and properties in this neighborhood are moving fast. If you're considering downsizing, now is the optimal time." "I never said I was considering anything," I said firmly. "Gentlemen, I think this meeting is over." Kevin's face darkened. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. This is the smart financial decision. It's my house, Kevin. My decision. Richard Morrison gathered his papers. I'll leave my card. When you're ready to discuss this seriously, give me a call. After he left, Kevin exploded. You're being selfish, Mom. What about Emma's future? What about practical planning? You can't just make decisions based on emotions. This isn't about emotions, Kevin. This is about my life, my home, my choice. Well, maybe it's time someone made the smart choices around here. I should have paid more attention to that statement. 2 weeks later, I returned from my weekly grocery shopping to find the front door locked and my key wouldn't work. I stood there, bags of groceries in my arms, trying my key over and over. Then Kevin opened the door, but only partially, blocking my entry. Kevin, what's going on? Why doesn't my key work? Mom, we need to talk. His voice was cold, formal. I've been thinking about our situation, and I've made some decisions for the family's well-being. What decisions? Let me in, Kevin. This is my house. That's just it, Mom. I don't think it is anymore. He held up a set of legal documents. I've been consulting with a lawyer. Given your age and recent memory issues. What memory issues? You left the stove on twice last week. You forgot to pay the electric bill. You couldn't remember where you put your car keys. Each statement felt like a slap. Those are minor things, Kevin. Everyone has moments like that. They're signs of cognitive decline, Mom. I have a responsibility to protect Emma and ensure this family's financial security. I'm implementing some changes. My heart started racing. What kind of changes? First, I'm taking over the household finances. I've already contacted your bank and had myself added as a co-signer on your accounts. For your protection, of course. You did what? Second, I think it's best if you stay at Emma's friend's house for a while. Jenny's grandmother has an extra room and she's experienced with elderly care. Kevin, you cannot kick me out of my own house. I'm not kicking you out, Mom. I'm making responsible decisions for everyone involved. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him. I've packed some of your things. They're in those suitcases by the garage. I looked over and saw 2 worn suitcases sitting by the garage door. My entire life reduced to whatever Kevin thought I might need. This is illegal, Kevin. You can't just take over someone's house. Actually, Mom, I can. I've been paying the mortgage payments for the last 6 months since your pension got delayed. I've been handling all the maintenance, all the repairs, all the real responsibilities of home ownership. And with your documented memory issues, I have legal grounds to assume guardianship if necessary. The world tilted around me. Memory issues? What memory issues? Kevin, I'm completely competent. Are you, Mom? Because last month you couldn't remember Emma's teacher's name. You got lost driving to the pharmacy you've been going to for 15 years. You asked me 3 times in one day when Dad's birthday was. Each accusation hit like a physical blow, mostly because they contained grains of truth. I had been having some scattered moments, some confusion. But who doesn't at 68? That didn't make me incompetent. Those are normal, age-related moments, Kevin. They don't give you the right to steal my house. I'm not stealing anything. I'm protecting family assets and ensuring everyone's safety and security. He handed me a business card. This is Dr. Patricia Williams. She specializes in geriatric psychology. I've scheduled you an appointment for next Tuesday. Depending on her evaluation, we can discuss your living arrangements going forward. I stared at the card, my hands shaking. Kevin, please. This is my home. Your father and Dad is dead, Mom. He's been dead for 5 years. It's time to move forward and make practical decisions based on current reality, not past memories. The cruelty of that statement took my breath away. How can you say that to me? Because someone needs to be the adult here. He turned to go back inside. Jenny's grandmother is expecting you. Her address is taped to your suitcase. I'll call you in a few days once I've had time to sort through the house and figure out our next steps. Our next steps? Kevin, this is my house. I'm not going anywhere. But he was already inside, and I heard the deadbolt click into place. I stood there on the sidewalk, in my own front yard, looking at the house where I'd raised my son, where I'd loved my husband, where I'd planned to spend my remaining years. The roses David planted were blooming beautifully, The porch light he installed was glowing in the late afternoon sun. Everything looked exactly the same, except I was locked out. Mrs. Patterson from next door came over, her face full of concern. "Margaret, honey, what's going on? I saw Kevin changing the locks this morning. He thinks I'm not capable of living independently anymore." "That's ridiculous. You're sharper than people half your age. Just last week you helped me figure out my Medicare paperwork. Try telling Kevin that." "Have you called the police?" I looked down at the legal documents Kevin had showed me, most of which I hadn't been able to read clearly. "I don't know if I have legal grounds. He's been paying some bills, he lives here too, and he has Emma to consider." "But it's your house, Margaret." "Yes, it is, and I'm going to get it back." That night, staying in a stranger's spare bedroom, I made a decision. Kevin wanted to play hardball? Fine. But he'd forgotten something crucial. I might be 68, but I wasn't born yesterday. I'd been handling difficult situations and difficult people long before Kevin was even born. The next morning, I called Richard Morrison. "Mr. Morrison, this is Margaret Chen. You gave me your card a few weeks ago about selling my house on Maple Street." "Mrs. Chen, yes, of course. Have you reconsidered your position?" "I have. I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss listing the property immediately." "Wonderful. I can meet with you and your son this afternoon if—" "Actually, Mr. Morrison, I'd prefer to handle this myself. My son has been overwhelmed with work lately. I don't want to burden him with the details." There was a pause. "Of course. Would you like to meet at the property?" "That might be difficult. Kevin is having the house fumigated for termites this week. Could we meet at your office instead?" "Absolutely. I can see you at 2 p.m. today if that works." At Morrison & Associates, I sat across from Richard Morrison's polished desk and got straight to the point. "I want to list the house immediately, but there are some complications." "What kind of complications?" "My son is currently staying there and doesn't know I've decided to sell. I need to handle this delicately to avoid family drama." Morrison nodded knowingly. "Family property transactions can be challenging. What did you have in mind?" "I want to list it as a quick sale. Price it to move fast, maybe $460,000. And I want you to arrange showings without advance notice to the current occupants." "Mrs. Chen, that's unusual. Typically, we coordinate with everyone living in the property." I leaned forward. "Mr. Morrison, it's my house. My name is on the deed, correct?" "Well, yes, I assume so, but—" "Then I'm the client. I'm paying your commission, and I'm telling you how I want this handled." He studied me for a moment. "All right. But I'll need to verify ownership and ensure there are no legal complications." "Of course. Here's my deed, my mortgage information, and my ID. Everything you need." Over the next 3 days, Morrison ran the title search and confirmed what I already knew. The house was mine, free and clear, except for a small remaining mortgage balance that I'd been paying faithfully for 37 years. Kevin's name appeared nowhere on any legal documents. "Mrs. Chen, everything checks out. Your son has no legal claim to the property. Are you sure he understands the situation?" "He will soon enough." Morrison listed the house that Friday. By Monday morning, we had 3 serious inquiries. By Wednesday, we had 2 solid offers, both above asking price. Portland's housing market was indeed hot, and my little blue house with its established garden and updated electrical was exactly what young families were looking for. I chose the higher offer, $475,000, from a young couple with twin toddlers. They were charmed by the rose garden and excited about the neighborhood's good schools. The wife, Sarah, reminded me of myself 37 years ago. Eager, hopeful, ready to build a life. "We can close in 2 weeks, Morrison told me. "But Mrs. Chen, you'll need to address the occupancy situation. Leave that to me." That Thursday morning, I met Sarah and her husband Mike at the house for their final walkthrough before closing. I'd timed it perfectly. Kevin would be at work and Emma would be at school. We were standing in my kitchen, Sarah admiring the original hardwood floors, when Kevin's car pulled into the driveway. "Oh," Sarah said, looking out the window. "Is that the current tenant?" "Something like that," I replied. Kevin walked through the front door and stopped dead when he saw strangers in his kitchen. "Mom? What the hell is going on here?" "Kevin, I'd like you to meet Sarah and Mike Patterson. They're the new owners of the house. The color drained from Kevin's face. New owners? What are you talking about? Morrison stepped forward with his professional smile. Mr. Chen, I'm Richard Morrison. We met a few weeks ago. Your mother has sold the property. Closing is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Kevin looked between me and Morrison like he was trying to process a foreign language. Sold the property? Mom, you can't sell the house. I live here. Emma lives here. Yes, you do live here, I said calmly. In my house, which I've now sold. But this is insane. You can't just sell the house without discussing it with me. Sarah and Mike exchanged uncomfortable glances. Morrison cleared his throat. Perhaps we should step outside and let you folks discuss this privately. No need, I said. Kevin, you made it very clear that you think I'm incompetent to manage my own affairs. You changed my locks, took over my finances, and kicked me out of my own home. So I made a competent, practical decision. I sold it. Mom, I was trying to protect you. From what? From living in my own house? From making my own decisions? From having control over my own life? From making mistakes? From being taken advantage of? From living unsafely? The only person who took advantage of me and made me feel unsafe was you, Kevin. Sarah spoke up quietly. Maybe we should come back later. No, I said firmly. You shouldn't have to come back later. This is your house now. Kevin, you have until tomorrow morning to remove your belongings. Mom, where are Emma and I supposed to go? I don't know, Kevin. Where did you expect me to go when you locked me out? That was different. I was trying to help you transition to appropriate housing. And I'm helping you transition to finding your own housing. Morrison was taking notes, clearly fascinated by the family drama unfolding in front of him. Mike was studying the crown molding with intense concentration, trying to avoid eye contact with anyone. Kevin's voice cracked. Mom, please. Emma loves this house. It's the only stable home she's known since the divorce. For a moment, my resolve wavered. Emma was innocent in all this, but then I remembered standing on that sidewalk with my suitcases, being told I had memory issues, being treated like an incompetent child by my own son. You should have thought about Emma's stability before you decided to throw her grandmother out on the street. I didn't throw you out. I arranged temporary housing while we figured out the best long-term solution. The best long-term solution was for you to respect that it's my house and my decision. But you chose to override my autonomy instead. Sarah cleared her throat. Mrs. Chen, we're very excited about the house, and we understand this is a difficult family situation. We're happy to work with reasonable timeline adjustments if needed. I looked at this young woman who reminded me so much of my younger self, ready to start building her life in the house where I'd built mine. That's very kind of you, Sarah, but Kevin is a grown man with a good job. One day is plenty of time for him to make alternative arrangements. Kevin's face was red now. Mom, I can't find a place for Emma and me to live in one day. Be reasonable. I was reasonable for 37 years. I was reasonable when you moved back in after your divorce. I was reasonable when you started making decisions about my house without consulting me. I was reasonable right up until the moment you changed my locks and handed me my own suitcases. I made a mistake, okay? I was scared about your health, about your safety, about Emma's future. I handled it wrong, but I was trying to do the right thing. The right thing would have been to have an honest conversation with me about your concerns. The right thing would have been to respect my dignity and autonomy. The right thing would have been to remember that I'm your mother, not your child. Morrison stepped forward again. Folks, I hate to interrupt, but we do need to complete this walkthrough and address the occupancy timeline. I turned to Sarah and Mike. Would you like to see the upstairs? As we walked through the bedrooms where Kevin had grown up, where Emma had been sleeping for the past 2 years, I felt a complex mix of emotions. This house held so many memories, so much love, but Kevin had poisoned it with his betrayal, his assumption that age equaled incompetence, his willingness to discard my feelings and autonomy for his idea of practical solutions. The master bedroom has wonderful morning light, I told Sarah, opening the curtains in the room I'd shared with David for decades. It's beautiful, she said softly. Mrs. Chen, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you sure about this? Selling your home because of a family conflict. These are decisions that can't be undone. I sat down on the bed where David and I had planned our lives, our dreams, our future. where we'd held each other through good times and bad, where I'd grieved for him after his heart attack. Sarah, let me tell you something about irreversible decisions. When my son decided I was too old and confused to manage my own life, when he changed my locks and handed me suitcases, when he scheduled psychiatric evaluations for me without my consent, those were irreversible decisions too. He broke something between us that can't be fixed by simply giving me my key back. She nodded slowly. I understand. Besides, I continued, this house was meant to be a home for a family. You and Mike will fill it with new love, new memories, new dreams. That's what David would have wanted. Downstairs, Kevin was pacing in the living room while Morrison made phone calls about the closing timeline. Mom, I'll get my own place, Kevin said when I came back down. But please, let me rent this house from the new owners until Emma finishes the school year. I'll pay fair market rate. I looked at Sarah and Mike. That's between you and them. Sarah and Mike exchanged a look. Mike spoke up for the first time. We'd be willing to consider a short-term rental arrangement until the end of the school year, if the terms are agreeable. Kevin's face showed relief. Yes, absolutely. Whatever terms you think are fair. We'll need first month, last month, and security deposit up front, Mike said. And a signed lease agreement. Of course, I watched this negotiation with mixed feelings. Part of me was glad Emma wouldn't have to change schools mid-year. Part of me was frustrated that Kevin was finding a way to stay in the house even after everything he'd done, but it wasn't my problem anymore. In 24 hours, it would be Sarah and Mike's house, and they could make their own decisions about tenants. The closing the next morning was surreal. I signed paper after paper, transferring ownership of the house that had been my whole world for 37 years. Kevin wasn't there. Morrison said he was meeting with Sarah and Mike separately to sign the rental agreement. When it was over, I held a cashier's check for $437,000 after paying off the mortgage, real estate fees, and closing costs. More money than I'd ever had in my life. Congratulations, Mrs. Chen, Morrison said. What's next for you? I looked out the window of his office toward the direction of Maple Street. I'm not sure yet, but for the first time in months, the decision is entirely mine to make. That afternoon, I drove by the house one last time. Sarah and Mike were in the front yard with their twins, the little boys running around the rose garden while their parents discussed landscaping plans. It was a scene of pure domestic happiness, the kind of scene David and I had created there decades ago. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. That chapter of my life was over, but the book was far from finished. 3 weeks later, I'm living in a beautiful senior community called Riverstone Village. Not because anyone forced me, but because I chose it after touring 5 different places and finding one that felt right. I have a 2-bedroom apartment with a view of the Willamette River, access to activities and medical care when I need them, and most importantly, complete control over my own life and decisions. Kevin calls occasionally. The conversations are stilted, careful. He's learning to treat me with the respect he should have shown all along, but the trust is gone. Maybe it can be rebuilt over time. Maybe it can't. That's a bridge we'll have to cross when we come to it. Emma visits every Sunday. She loves my new apartment, especially the community's pool and game room. She doesn't fully understand what happened between her father and me, and I hope she never has to. But she knows her grandmother fought for her independence and won. The $437,000 from the house sale is invested conservatively, providing me with a comfortable income supplement that makes my retirement years financially secure. I could live here for 20 years without worrying about money. But most importantly, I learned something valuable. Being 68 doesn't make me invisible, incompetent, or powerless. When someone tries to steamroll over your autonomy, even someone you love, sometimes the only way to preserve your dignity is to make the hard choice to walk away. Kevin thought he could manipulate me into the life he wanted me to live. Instead, he taught me that I still have the strength to fight for the life I want to live. And that, it turns out, was the most valuable lesson of all. If this story moved you or made you think about your own family relationships, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that matter. Remember, no matter what age you are, your voice, your choices, and your dignity matter. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.